My name is Sheila. I'm 52 years old, and I've been living with lies so long they taste like copper pennies on my tongue every morning when I wake up. Standing in Mama's old bedroom, I run my fingers along the mahogany dresser she polished every Sunday after church, the wood still holding the faint scent of lemon oil and her favorite cocoa butter lotion. 43 years I believed what they told me. 43 years I carried the shame of having a crazy mama who lost her mind and had to be put away for her own good. The floorboards creak under my feet, the same sound that used to announce my presence when I'd sneak in here as a child, hoping to catch a whiff of her Jean Naté perfume still lingering in the air. But Mama wasn't crazy. The manila folder in my hands proves it. Papers yellowed with age that I found yesterday wedged behind her jewelry box. The box itself sits heavy in my palm, its velvet lining worn smooth from decades of her fingers searching for her pearl earrings, the ones Daddy gave her for their 10th anniversary. Inside, underneath where her wedding ring used to rest, I discovered what my aunts never wanted me to find. The commitment papers are signed by my Aunt Doris and Uncle Harold's wife, Evelyn. Not by any doctor, not by Mama herself. Just their neat cursive signatures authorizing the state hospital to take custody of Mama's deteriorating mental condition. The date makes my stomach lurch. 2 weeks after Grandmama died and left Mama the house, the land, and $40,000 in 1981 money. Money that could have changed our lives forever. I sink onto Mama's bed, the wedding ring quilt she hand-stitched still covering the mattress after all these years. My cousin Tisha kept this room exactly like Mama left it, down to the African violet on the windowsill that somehow keeps blooming purple and white. The afternoon sun slants through the lace curtains, casting shadows that dance across the faded roses of the wallpaper. Everything smells like home, like Sunday dinners and Blue Magic hair grease and the lavender sachets Mama tucked into every drawer. "Sheila, you okay up there?" Tisha's voice floats up from the kitchen, followed by the sound of grease popping in cast iron. She's making cornbread for dinner, probably using Mama's recipe that calls for more sugar than most folks think proper. The familiar sounds should comfort me, but instead, they make everything feel more wrong. How many family dinners did we sit through, talking around the empty chair where Mama should have been? "Just looking through some things?" I call back, my voice catching. I don't tell her what I found. Not yet. Tisha's been carrying her own guilt about Mama for years, always wondering if she could have done something different. She was only 16 when they took Mama away, but she blamed herself for not speaking up, for not questioning why a woman who'd been fine one week was suddenly dangerous to herself and others the next. The medical records tell a different story. Mama's intake evaluation describes a woman who was agitated and uncooperative, but shows no signs of psychosis or genuine mental illness. The notes mention her persistent claims about family theft and paranoid accusations regarding her inheritance. They labeled her delusions what I now know were desperate attempts to tell the truth. She knew what Doris and Evelyn had done. She knew they'd forged documents, sold Grandmama's property, and split the money between them while she was locked away, sedated, and silenced. I press my face into Mama's pillow, breathing in the faint traces of her presence. Even after 15 years, I swear I can smell the coconut oil she used to slick down my edges before church, her gentle fingers working through my kitchen while she hummed, "Precious Lord." The cotton pillowcase is soft against my cheek, worn thin from decades of dreams and nightmares, hopes and fears absorbed into the fabric. The cruelest part is how they made me complicit in my own Mama's erasure. Every Sunday after service at Mount Olive Baptist, Aunt Doris would pat my shoulder with her gloved hand and remind me to pray for Mama's healing. "She's sick, baby girl. she'd whisper, her breath smelling like peppermint and lies. Sometimes the Lord tests us by taking away the people we love most. I believed her because I was 12 and had nowhere else to turn. I believed her because she took me in when Mama disappeared, fed me collard greens and ham hocks at her table, bought me school clothes with money I now realize came from Mama's stolen inheritance. The betrayal burns in my chest like swallowed fire. All those years, I thought I was an orphan with a crazy mama, when really, I was the daughter of a woman they destroyed to steal what was rightfully ours. All those years I struggled, working 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school, living paycheck to paycheck, while Doris bought herself a new Cadillac every few years, and Evelyn renovated her kitchen twice. A photograph falls from between the pages of Mama's Bible, landing face up on the quilt. It's us at my 8th birthday party. Mama's arms wrapped around me as I blow out candles on a homemade cake. Her smile is radiant, her dark skin glowing in the camera flash, gold hoop earrings catching the light. She's wearing the blue dress with tiny white flowers that I remember running my small fingers along while she read to me. This is not the face of a crazy woman. This is the face of a mother who loved her daughter fiercely, who would have fought heaven and earth to protect what was ours. "Dinner's ready," Tisha calls, her voice mixed with the sound of plates clinking against the wooden kitchen table that's been in our family for 3 generations. I can smell the cornbread now, golden and slightly sweet, probably sitting next to a pot of greens that have been simmering since noon with ham hocks and a splash of apple cider vinegar. The smells of home, of family, of Sunday dinners that Mama should have been part of but never got to enjoy again. I fold the papers carefully and slip them back into the manila folder. My hands are shaking, partly from rage and partly from something that might be relief. For 43 years, I've carried the weight of genetic predisposition, wondering if I'd inherited Mama's mental illness, watching myself for signs of the breakdown that took her away from me. Now I know the truth. There was no breakdown. There was only greed and betrayal disguised as concern. Family members who stole a woman's life and convinced her daughter it was for her own good. The wooden stairs creak under my feet as I head down to join Tisha for dinner. Each step feels different now, heavier with purpose. The house feels different too, like it's been waiting for someone to finally hear its secrets, to give voice to the injustice that happened within these walls. The kitchen is warm and golden, filled with the sounds and smells of family tradition. Tisha stands at the stove, her natural hair twisted up in a colorful head wrap, stirring something that smells like love and memory. But as I settle into my chair at the table, sliding the folder discreetly beside my plate, I realize this is just the beginning. Finding the truth was the easy part. Now I have to decide what to do with it. Aunt Doris is 78 years old, living in the house she bought with Mama's money, attending the same church where she spent decades accepting sympathy for her poor sister's condition. Evelyn passed 5 years ago, but her children inherited everything she stole, including the land that should have been mine. The cornbread is perfect, crusty on the outside, tender and sweet within. I take a bite and taste not just the familiar flavors of home, but something new. The bittersweet taste of justice deferred but not denied. Mama's gone, buried in the state hospital cemetery without family present, without the funeral she deserved. But her truth is alive now, sitting here at this table, demanding to be heard. I look across at Tisha, who's watching me with concerned eyes, probably wondering why I've been so quiet, so distant since I arrived yesterday to help clean out Mama's things. She deserves to know. We all deserve to know. The whole family, the whole church, the whole community that watched a woman disappear and never questioned the story they were told. "Tisha," I say, setting down my fork and reaching for the folder. We need to talk. Tisha, I say, setting down my fork and reaching for the folder. We need to talk. My cousin's face shifts from concern to something sharper as she watches me pull out the manila folder. The kitchen suddenly feels smaller, like the walls are leaning in to listen. Steam rises from the pot of greens on the stove, carrying the rich smell of ham hocks and pot liquor that's been our family's Sunday tradition for as long as I can remember. What's that, Sheila? Tisha asks, wiping her hands on the dish towel tucked into her apron strings. The fabric is worn soft from years of use, printed with faded roosters that Aunt May bought at the church bazaar before she passed. You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. I spread the papers across the scarred wooden table between our plates. The commitment documents feel heavy in my hands, heavier than paper should be. These were hidden behind Mama's jewelry box, in that little space where she used to keep her special things. Tisha moves closer, her house slippers shuffling against the linoleum floor that's been patched and repatched over the decades. The pattern is some kind of geometric design in yellow and brown that was probably fashionable in the 70s. She leans over my shoulder, and I catch the familiar scent of coconut oil in her hair, mixed with the lavender soap she's used since we were teenagers. Lord have mercy, she whispers, her finger tracing the signature lines. These are commitment papers for Mama Ruby. Read the dates, Tisha. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. Look at the dates, then look at this. I pull out the inheritance documents, watching my cousin's dark eyes grow wider as she processes what she's seeing. The grandfather clock in the living room chimes 6 times, each note hanging in the air like a question mark. Tisha sinks into the chair across from me, her hands flat on the table, pressing against the wood like she's trying to ground herself. 2 weeks, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. She was committed 2 weeks after Grandmama left her the house and the land. And the money. I point to the bank documents. $40,000, Tisha. In 1981, that was serious money. Enough to set up a family for life. Tisha's breathing changes, becomes shallow and quick. I watch her face cycle through emotions. Confusion, realization, then something that looks like grief mixed with rage. She pushes back from the table so hard her chair scrapes against the floor, a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. No, she says, standing up and pacing to the window that looks out over the backyard, where Mama used to hang laundry on the line. No, Sheila, Aunt Doris wouldn't. She loved Mama Ruby. She took care of you after they stole everything and locked Mama away. The words taste like ash in my mouth. Look at the signatures, cousin. Look who signed as witnesses. Tisha comes back to the table, her movements sharp and agitated. She picks up the commitment papers with hands that are shaking now, and I see the exact moment when the truth hits her. Her face crumples like a paper bag being crushed. Mama signed this. Her voice breaks on the words. My own Mama signed papers saying Aunt Ruby was dangerous to herself and others. The silence that follows is so complete, I can hear the ice maker in the refrigerator cycling on, hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses down, hear the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. Tisha drops into her chair like her legs won't hold her anymore. All these years, she whispers. I thought Aunt Ruby just snapped. After Uncle James died, I thought she couldn't handle being alone with you, couldn't handle the responsibility. Mama always said mental illness ran in our family, that we had to watch for signs. What signs? I ask, though I already know the answer. What signs did any of us ever see? Tisha's eyes are wet now, tears tracking down her cheeks as she stares at the documents spread between us like evidence at a trial. She was sad after Uncle James passed. Real sad. But Lord, Sheila, who wouldn't be? Losing your husband when you're only 34, left with a young child, and no real income? I nod, remembering fragments now with this new lens. Mama crying in the kitchen late at night when she thought I was asleep. Mama staring out the window for long periods, not responding when I called her name. Mama forgetting to make dinner some nights, or burning the cornbread because her mind was somewhere else. Grief, I say. She was grieving, and instead of helping her through it, they used it against her. The kitchen feels charged now, like the air before a thunderstorm. Tisha gets up again, this time moving to the stove, where she turns off the burner under the greens. The sudden absence of bubbling sounds makes everything else seem louder. The hum of the refrigerator. The tick of the wall clock shaped like a rooster that's been hanging there since I was a child. There's more, I say, pulling out the property deeds. The house on Elm Street that Aunt Doris has been living in for 40 years? That was supposed to be Mama's. The land where Evelyn built her big house with the swimming pool? That was supposed to be ours. Tisha turns around slowly, like she's moving through thick water. Her face has gone ashy, the rich brown of her skin looking drained and sick. How much? She asks. How much did they steal? I do quick math in my head, thinking about property values, about inflation, about all the years of rent and profits and appreciation. Hundreds of thousands, probably. Maybe more. That land where Evelyn built? It's worth at least $300,000 now. The house Doris lives in? Another 200, easy. Jesus. Tisha braces herself against the counter, her knuckles pressing white against the yellow formica. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. The phone rings then, shrill and sudden in the heavy quiet. We both jump, and I feel my heart slam against my ribs. The sound cuts through the kitchen like a blade, and neither of us moves to answer it. After 4 rings, the answering machine kicks in, and I hear Tisha's recorded voice saying, "She can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message." "Tisha, baby, it's Aunt Doris." The voice that has haunted my dreams for 43 years fills the kitchen, sweet and concerned and lying. "I just wanted to check on you and make sure everything's going okay with cleaning out poor Ruby's things. I know it's hard, honey, but remember what we talked about. Some things are better left buried. Call me when you get this, okay? Love you." The machine clicks off, and the silence that follows is deafening. Tisha and I stare at each other across the kitchen, and I see my own thoughts reflected in her eyes. Some things are better left buried. Like she knew. Like she's known all along that there were secrets in this house. Truths that could destroy the careful story she's been telling for decades. "She knows," Tisha whispers. "Aunt Doris knows we're here going through everything." I think about the folder hidden behind Mama's jewelry box, about how carefully it was concealed, about how Mama must have known what was happening to her, but was powerless to stop it. She's been waiting for this day, probably dreading it. Tisha walks back to the table on unsteady legs and sits down hard. She picks up one of the bank statements, studying it like she's trying to memorize every number. "What are we going to do, Sheila? What are we supposed to do with this?" The question hangs between us like smoke. Outside, I can hear children playing in someone's yard, their voices high and happy and innocent. The sound reminds me of myself at 8 years old, playing in this same neighborhood, believing the adults around me were good people who told the truth. "I don't know," I admit. "But I know we can't pretend we never saw this. Mama deserves better than that. Aunt Doris is 78 years old. Tisha says, her voice small. She's got diabetes and high blood pressure. This could kill her. And Mama was 34 when they killed her. The words come out harsher than I intend, but I don't take them back. She spent 27 years in that place, Tisha. 27 years thinking she was crazy, thinking no one loved her enough to visit. Tisha flinches like I've slapped her. I wanted to visit. God knows I wanted to. But Mama said it would just upset Aunt Ruby more, make her condition worse. She said the doctors recommended no family contact until she was stable. What doctors? I spread the papers out again, pointing to the signatures. Look at this. Dr. Morrison signed the commitment papers, but there's no medical evaluation, no psychiatric assessment, nothing. They had her committed based on the word of family members who said she was dangerous. The realization hits us both at the same time. Tisha's hand flies to her mouth, and I feel something cold and terrible settle in my stomach. There never were any doctors. Tisha breathes. Not real ones, not ones who examined her. I nod, feeling sick. They just wanted her gone, and they wanted her money and property. So they convinced some hack to sign papers saying she was mentally incompetent? The kitchen seems to spin around me for a moment, and I have to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. The smell of the cooling greens, usually so comforting, now makes my stomach turn. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about my history, about the reason I grew up poor and struggling, it's all been a lie. We have to tell someone, I say, surprised by how sure I sound. We have to make this right. Who? Tisha asks. Who's going to care about something that happened 43 years ago? Who's going to believe us over Aunt Doris and her church reputation? She's right, and we both know it. Aunt Doris is a pillar of Mount Olive Baptist, the woman who organized the church dinners and visited the sick and tithed faithfully every Sunday. She's the woman who took in her orphaned niece and raised her like her own daughter. Who's going to believe she's capable of something this evil? But as I sit there in Mama's kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of her stolen life, I feel something shift inside me. For 43 years, I've carried the weight of thinking I might go crazy like my mama did. For 43 years, I've lived small and careful, afraid of my own mind, afraid of the genes I thought I'd inherited. I'm going to confront her, I say, the words surprising me as they come out of my mouth. Tonight, I'm going to drive over there and show her these papers and demand answers. Sheila, no. Tisha reaches across the table and grabs my wrist. Her fingers are warm and strong, calloused from years of working as a home health aide. You can't just walk into her house and accuse her of stealing from family. You need to think this through. I've been thinking for 43 years, I say, gently pulling my hand free. I'm done thinking. Mama deserves justice, even if it's too late for her to see it. The grandfather clock chimes again, marking the half hour. Outside, the children's voices have faded, probably called in for dinner by mothers who love them, mothers who would fight the world to protect them, like my mama would have done if they'd given her the chance. I start gathering the papers, stacking them carefully back into the folder. My hands are steady now, my mind clear for the first time since I found these documents. You don't have to come with me, I tell Tisha. I know this puts you in a terrible position. She's your mama, too. She was never my mama, Tisha says quietly. Not really. She raised me, yes, but she was never warm, never affectionate the way Aunt Ruby was with you before. She trails off, then looks at me with eyes that are suddenly fierce. I'm coming with you. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. I feel a rush of gratitude so strong it almost brings me to tears. Family, Real family, the kind that stands by you when the truth gets ugly, when doing the right thing means destroying everything you thought you knew. Okay, I say, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. Let's go get some answers. But as we prepare to leave Mama's house, walking through rooms that suddenly feel like a shrine to a woman who was erased from her own life, I can't shake the feeling that we're about to open a door that can never be closed again. The truth has power, but it also has consequences. And some consequences can tear a family apart forever. The folder feels heavy in my hands as we walk toward the front door. Heavy with secrets and lies and 43 years of stolen time. But it also feels like hope. Like maybe, finally, Mama Ruby can rest in peace, knowing that someone heard her story and believed it was worth fighting for. The drive to Aunt Doris's house takes us through neighborhoods that hold 43 years of my memories. Past the corner store where she used to buy me penny candy when I was good in church. Past the beauty shop where she'd take me to get my hair pressed for Easter Sunday. The irony tastes bitter as communion wine. All those small kindnesses, all those moments I thought proved her love, now feel like guilt offerings. Payment for the sin she'd committed against my mama. My hands grip the steering wheel tight enough to make my knuckles ache, and Tisha keeps glancing over at me from the passenger seat. The folder sits between us like a loaded gun, and I can smell the mustiness of old paper mixed with the coconut oil moisturizer I rubbed into my hands this morning. Everything feels hyper-real. The way the late afternoon sun slants through my windshield, the gospel station playing low on the radio, the familiar ache in my lower back from sitting too long in Mama's kitchen chairs. You sure about this timing? Tisha asks as I turn onto Magnolia Street. She'll be getting ready for evening service soon. You know how she gets when her routine's disrupted. I know exactly how she gets. Aunt Doris has lived her life by the church schedule for as long as I can remember. Wednesday night Bible study, Sunday morning service, Sunday evening prayer meeting. Structure and routine, and the appearance of righteousness. The perfect camouflage for someone hiding ugly secrets. Good, I say, parking in front of the neat brick house with its perfectly maintained flower beds. Maybe being off balance will make her more likely to tell the truth. The house looks exactly the same as it did when I was growing up here. Same white shutters, same concrete steps I used to sit on while waiting for the school bus. Same porch swing where Aunt Doris would sit after dinner, fanning herself with a church bulletin and watching the neighborhood kids play. The jasmine vine she planted when I was 12 has grown thick around the porch posts, and its heavy sweetness hits me as soon as I step out of the car. My legs feel unsteady as we walk up the front path, like I'm moving through water instead of air. This is the house where I learned to cook Sunday dinner, where I did homework at the kitchen table, where I cried into my pillow the night I got my first period, because I missed my mama so much, it felt like dying. This is the house where Aunt Doris raised me with firm discipline and practical love, where she taught me to press my hair and balance a checkbook and never depend too much on any man. This is also the house where she lied to me every single day for 18 years. Tisha reaches for my hand as we climb the front steps, and her palm is damp with nervous sweat. The wooden porch creaks under our feet, that same loose board by the door that's been squeaking for decades. Some things never change. Some things change everything. I ring the doorbell instead of using my key. This isn't a family visit anymore. This is something else entirely. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Aunt Doris's voice carries through the screen door before she appears, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She's wearing her good dress already, the navy blue one with the white collar that she saves for church, and her hair is freshly styled in the same pressed and curled pattern she's worn since I was a child. At 78, she's still a handsome woman, tall and straight-backed, with skin the color of coffee with cream and eyes that miss nothing. Hey, Aunt Doris. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. We need to talk to you about something important. Her smile falters slightly as she takes in our serious expressions, but she pushes open the screen door and steps aside to let us in. Come on in then. You girls look like somebody died. Everything all right? The living room smells like the lemon pledge she uses every Friday for deep cleaning, mixed with the faint medicinal scent of the arthritis cream she rubs on her joints. The same furniture sits in the same arrangement. The burgundy sofa with the crocheted doilies on the arms, the coffee table with its neat stack of church magazines, the family photos arranged just so on the mantelpiece, photos of me at graduation, at my wedding, holding my babies, photos of Tish's kids, photos of family gatherings and church events. No photos of Mama Ruby. There never have been. Sit down, sit down. Aunt Doris gestures toward the sofa, but neither Tisha nor I move to sit. We stand there in the middle of the room, and I can feel the weight of the folder in my hands like it's made of lead instead of paper. Actually, we'd rather stand for this. I look directly into her eyes, searching for any hint of guilt or fear or recognition of why we might be here. But Aunt Doris has had 43 years to perfect her poker face. All I see is mild curiosity and the beginning edge of irritation. All right then. What's so important it couldn't wait until after church? I take a deep breath, tasting the familiar air of this house. The mixture of cooking grease and furniture polish, and the faint staleness that comes from keeping windows closed and curtains drawn. This house has always felt safe to me, protected. Now, it feels like a trap. We found some papers today, in Mama's room. I open the folder and pull out the commitment documents, holding them so she can see the official letterhead. Papers about why she was really sent away. The change in Aunt Doris's face is subtle, but unmistakable. Her eyes narrow slightly, and her mouth tightens into a thin line. She doesn't ask what papers or act confused or surprised. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Where did you find those? Her voice is carefully controlled, but I can hear the tension underneath. Does it matter where I found them? I step closer, close enough to smell the white shoulders perfume she's worn for as long as I can remember. What matters is what they say. They say Mama wasn't sick, Aunt Doris. They say she was committed because family members claimed she was dangerous, not because any doctor examined her and found her mentally ill. That's not... She stops herself, pressing her lips together. That's not what? Tisha speaks for the first time since we arrived, her voice sharp with an anger I've rarely heard from her. That's not how you remember it? That's not what you told us all these years? Aunt Doris looks between us, and for the first time since I've known her, she looks old, fragile. The strong, unshakable woman who raised me is crumbling right in front of my eyes, and part of me wants to stop this, to put the papers away and pretend we never found them. But I think about Mama, about the woman I barely remember who used to sing to me while she braided my hair, who used to let me help her make biscuits on Saturday mornings, who used to read me stories from the big Bible with the pictures in it. I think about all the years she spent locked away, all the birthdays and Christmases and graduations she missed because her own family betrayed her. Sit down, Aunt Doris. My voice is gentle but firm. It's time to tell the truth. She sinks into her favorite chair, the recliner by the window where she sits to watch her stories every afternoon. And suddenly, she looks every one of her 78 years. Her hands shake as she smooths her skirt, and when she looks up at me, her eyes are wet with unshed tears. You don't understand, she whispers. You don't know how it was back then, what she was like after Daddy died. Then tell me. I sit down on the edge of the coffee table, close enough to touch her, but not touching. Tell me the truth about my mama. The silence stretches between us, filled only with the ticking of the mantel clock and the distant sound of children playing outside. Normal sounds from a normal evening in a normal house where normal families live normal lives, built on normal truths. We are not a normal family. We never have been. Aunt Doris stares at her hands for what feels like an eternity, her wedding ring catching the lamplight as her fingers twist together. The silence is thick as molasses, heavy with 43 years of buried truth. I can hear the ice maker cycling in her kitchen, the familiar mechanical hum that's been the soundtrack to 1,000 family dinners in this house. Ruby was... She starts and stops, her voice catching. She was different after Daddy died. Not sick, not the way we said, but different. Different how? Tisha's voice is steady, but I can see her jaw clenched tight, the muscle jumping under her brown skin. She got ideas about the money, about the property, about who deserved what. Aunt Doris lifts her head, and there's something in her eyes I've never seen before. Not guilt, but defiance. She thought because she was the youngest, because Daddy always favored her, that she should get everything. The house, the savings, all of it. My stomach drops like I've swallowed stones. She inherited it legally. The will was clear. The will was wrong. The words come out sharp, bitter as burnt coffee grounds. Daddy wrote that will when he was sick, when his mind wasn't right. Ruby was barely 25, unmarried, had no sense about money or responsibility. The rest of us had families, mortgages, children to think about. I feel heat rising in my chest, spreading up my neck like a fever. The familiar scent of her house, the mixture of Jergens lotion and old wood, and the lingering ghost of Sunday dinners, suddenly makes me nauseous. So, you decided to take it from her. We decided to protect the family. Her voice gained strength, the same tone she used when I was a child and had questioned her authority. Ruby was talking crazy, saying she was going to sell Daddy's house, move up north somewhere, take you with her, leave all of us behind like we didn't matter. The room tilts around me. I grip the edge of the coffee table, feeling the smooth wood grain under my palms, worn soft by decades of family gatherings and Christmas mornings and ordinary moments that now feel poisoned by this revelation. She wanted to take me with her? She was your mama, Aunt Doris says, like the words taste wrong in her mouth. Course she wanted you with her. But what kind of life would that have been? No family, no roots, just the two of you in some strange city where nobody knew us, nobody cared about us? That wasn't your decision to make. My voice comes out hoarse, like I've been screaming. You didn't get to decide what was best for my mama, or for me. Didn't we? Now the steel is back in her voice, the iron backbone that held our family together through divorces and deaths and disappointments. Look how you turned out. Good job, good marriage, beautiful children. You think that would have happened if we'd let Ruby drag you off to Detroit or Chicago or wherever she was planning to go? I stand up so fast my knees crack, the sound sharp in the quiet room. You don't know what would have happened. Nobody knows because you never gave her the chance to try. She was getting ideas about things that weren't hers to think about. Aunt Doris's voice drops low, conspiratorial. Talking about hiring lawyers, fighting the family, making trouble. And the way she was with you after Daddy died. Obsessive, possessive. She wouldn't let anyone else watch you. Wouldn't bring you to family dinners. Kept talking about how she had to protect you from something that wasn't even there. Maybe she was trying to protect me from y'all. The words slip out before I can stop them, and they hang in the air like smoke from a grease fire. Aunt Doris flinches like I've slapped her. That's not fair, Sheila. We loved you. We raised you. We gave you everything we could. You gave me everything except the truth about my mama. I can feel tears burning behind my eyes, but I won't cry. Not here, not now. You let me think she was crazy. You let me think she abandoned me because she was too sick to love me. She was sick. But there's no conviction in her voice anymore. Maybe not the way the doctor said, but sick in her heart. Sick with grief and anger and jealousy. Jealousy? Tisha speaks up, her voice sharp as broken glass. What did she have to be jealous of? Of us, of how we all pulled together after Daddy died, how we took care of each other. She felt left out, like we were ganging up on her. Which we weren't, she adds quickly. We were trying to include her, but she kept pushing us away, kept acting like we were the enemy. I think about the commitment papers, about the signatures at the bottom. Uncle James, Aunt Loretta, Aunt Doris. All of them signing their names to put their own sister away, to lock her up like a dangerous animal. The betrayal sits in my stomach like a meal that's gone bad, churning and sour. So you decided to have her committed? It wasn't like that. Aunt Doris's voice is pleading now, desperate. We tried talking to her first, tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. She said we were all thieves and liars, said she was going to expose us, ruin us. She threatened to take you away where we'd never see you again. Because you were stealing from her. The words explode out of me, echoing off the walls of this pristine living room with its carefully arranged family photos and its conspicuous absence of my mother's face. She was right. You were thieves and liars. We were family. Aunt Doris stands up, her voice rising to match mine. Everything we did for family, for you. Do you think it was easy, taking on a 5-year-old when we all had our own children to worry about? Do you think it was cheap, raising you, clothes and food and doctor bills and school supplies? Nobody asked you to do that. Nobody asked you to steal my mama's money and then pretend it was charity when you spend it on me. The silence that follows is deafening. We stare at each other across the coffee table, across 43 years of lies and love and complicated truth. Outside, I can hear the Hendersons' dog barking at something, probably a cat or a squirrel. The same dog that's been barking at the same things for the past 5 years. Normal sounds from a normal evening in a neighborhood where families don't destroy each other with signatures on commitment papers. The money ran out years ago, Aunt Doris says quietly. What we took from Ruby's inheritance, it paid for maybe the first 10 years of raising you. Everything after that came out of our own pockets, our own savings. James mortgaged his house twice to help pay for your college. The revelation hits me like cold water. I sink back down onto the coffee table, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. What do you mean, it ran out? I mean, it wasn't as much as you think. The house sold for $12,000. Daddy's savings account had maybe $8,000 in it. Split 4 ways after we paid for Ruby's care, there wasn't much left. Split 4 ways? Tisha's voice is deadly quiet. Ruby was supposed to get it all. Ruby was in the hospital. Aunt Doris's face hardens again. She wasn't in any condition to manage money or property. Someone had to make the practical decisions. I feel like I'm drowning in revelations, each one pulling me deeper underwater. The comfortable story of my childhood, poor but loved, raised by family who sacrificed for me, is crumbling like old newspaper in my hands. In its place is something messier, more complicated, built on a foundation of betrayal and justified with decades of self-righteous love. Where is she? The question comes out in a whisper. Where is my mama now? Aunt Doris looks away, focusing on something beyond the window. She died, baby. 7 years ago. I got a call from the hospital. The world stops. Completely stops. The dog stops barking. The ice maker stops humming. My heart stops beating. 7 years ago, I was planning my daughter's Sweet 16 party. 7 years ago, I was complaining about work stress and mortgage payments and teenage attitude. 7 years ago, my mama died, and nobody told me. You knew she was dead, and you didn't tell me? My voice doesn't sound like my voice anymore. It sounds like it's coming from somewhere far away, like I'm hearing it through water. What would have been the point? Aunt Doris's voice is small, defensive. She'd been gone for so long, it would have just brought up painful memories. Made you ask questions we weren't ready to answer. Made you face what you'd done, you mean? I stand up again, the folder of papers clutched against my chest like armor. Made you admit that you stole from her, locked her away, and then let her die alone while I grew up thinking she'd abandoned me? She did abandon you! The words come out fierce, angry. The minute she chose her hurt feelings over her responsibility to you, she abandoned you. We're the ones who raised you, loved you, sacrificed for you. With her money, I'm shouting now, not caring if the neighbors hear, not caring about anything except the rage burning through my veins like liquid fire. You raised me with the money you stole from her. You bought my love with my own mama's inheritance. We bought you a life, Aunt Doris shouts back. A good life, a stable life. Look at yourself, Sheila. Look what you became. You think that would have happened if we'd let Ruby drag you off to God knows where, living off what was left after lawyers' fees and court costs and... I'll never know, will I? I cut her off, my voice going quiet again, cold as winter air. Because you never gave us the chance to find out. The fight goes out of her all at once, like someone pulled a plug. She sinks back into her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 78 years. We did what we thought was best. For everyone. For the family. No. I shake my head, backing toward the door. You did what was easiest for you. What let you sleep at night? What let you keep the money and still feel like the good guys? Sheila, don't leave like this. Let's talk about this like adults. Like family. We're not family. The words come out flat, final. Family doesn't do what you did to my mama. Family doesn't steal and lie and then pat themselves on the back for 43 years about what good Christians they are. I'm at the door now, my hand on the knob, Tisha right behind me. The familiar scent of this house, the lemon pledge and arthritis cream, and decades of Sunday dinners, makes my stomach churn. This house that was my sanctuary, my safe place, now feels like a mausoleum built on my mother's bones. If you walk out that door, Sheila, if you choose to believe the worst about people who loved you and raised you... Aunt Doris's voice follows me, desperate now, pleading. Think about what that'll do to this family. Think about your cousins, your uncle, all the people who'll get hurt if you decide to make this into something bigger than it is. I turn back to look at her one last time. She's still in her church clothes, her hair still perfectly styled, her makeup still intact. She still looks like the strong, righteous woman who raised me, who taught me right from wrong, who held me when I cried and celebrated when I succeeded. She also looks like a stranger. The family was already broken, Aunt Doris. It's been broken for 43 years. I'm just the first one honest enough to admit it. The screen door slams behind us with a sound like a gunshot, final and irreversible. We walk to the car in silence, the evening air thick with humidity and the approaching promise of rain. I can feel Aunt Doris watching us from her window, but I don't look back. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The drive home passes in a blur of streetlights and silence. Tisha doesn't try to fill the quiet with words, and I'm grateful. My hands grip the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ache, but I can't seem to loosen them. Every turn brings us deeper into familiar territory. Past the corner store where I bought penny candy, past the church where I got baptized at 12, past the park where cousin Marcus taught me to ride a bike. All of it feels foreign now, like I'm seeing it through someone else's eyes. When we pull into my driveway, Tisha finally speaks. "You want me to come in? Stay the night?" I shake my head, though the thought of being alone right now makes my chest tight. I need to think, need to process all this. She nods, understanding in that way that only comes from decades of friendship. "Call me if you need anything. I mean anything, Sheila. Even if it's 3 a.m. and you just want to scream at somebody." I watch her taillights disappear around the corner before I unlock my front door. The house feels different somehow, like the furniture has shifted while I was gone. The family photos on the mantel, pictures of me with Aunt Doris and Uncle James at graduations, holidays, birthdays, seem to stare at me with accusation. Or maybe that's just my guilt talking. In the kitchen, I set the folder of documents on the counter next to the fruit bowl, then stare at it like it might explode. Part of me wants to shove it in a drawer, pretend this afternoon never happened, go back to the comfortable lie I've been living for 52 years. But the other part, the part that sounds more and more like my mama's voice with each passing hour, knows there's no going back now. My stomach growls, reminding me I haven't eaten since breakfast. I open the refrigerator and stare at its contents. Leftover fried chicken, green beans with ham hocks, a container of rice. Sunday dinner food, the kind Aunt Doris taught me to make when I was barely tall enough to reach the stove. The irony isn't lost on me. I pull out the green beans, dump them in a pot to reheat. The smell rises up as they warm. Smoky pork, tender vegetables, the ghost of Sunday dinners past. But instead of comfort, it brings a memory I haven't thought about in years. I was maybe 8, standing on a step stool in Aunt Doris's kitchen, stirring a pot of beans just like these. "Why don't I look like you, Aunt Doris?" I'd asked, the question that had been burning in my mind for weeks after a classmate pointed out that my skin was darker. My hair different texture. "You look like your mama," she'd said, not looking at me, focused on seasoning the cornbread batter. "You got her coloring, her build, nothing wrong with that." "But where is she? Why doesn't she want to see me?" The wooden spoon had stilled in the bowl. For a long moment, the only sound was the beans bubbling on the stove. Then, "Your mama's sick, baby. Really sick. And sometimes when people are that sick, they can't take care of themselves, let alone a little girl. We're taking care of you because we love you, and because that's what family does." I'd accepted that answer then, the way children accept what adults tell them. But now, stirring these same beans in my own kitchen, I hear the careful word choices, the way she'd avoided my eyes, the way she'd made it sound like mercy instead of theft. The beans start to bubble, and I turn the heat down, add a splash of chicken broth like Mama Pearl taught me when I was learning to cook. The smell deepens, becomes richer, and suddenly I'm not in my kitchen anymore. I'm 6 years old, maybe 7, in a kitchen I barely remember. Smaller than Aunt Doris's, with yellow walls and a window that looked out onto a garden full of tomato plants. There's a woman at the stove, tall, graceful, with skin like polished mahogany and hair that she wears in 2 thick braids down her back. She's humming something low and sweet, a gospel song maybe, while she stirs a pot. Come here, baby girl, she says without turning around, like she has eyes in the back of her head. Come help Mama with dinner. I climb onto a chair, not a step stool like at Aunt Doris's, but a regular dining room chair pushed up to the counter. The woman, my mama, I know now, though her face is fuzzy in the memory like looking through water, hands me a wooden spoon. Stir it gentle, she says, her hand covering mine on the spoon handle. Her voice is nothing like Aunt Doris's sharp efficiency. It's soft, musical, patient. Food don't like to be rushed. It'll tell you when it's ready. The memory hits me so hard I have to grip the counter to stay standing. It's the first clear recollection I have of my mother. Not the vague impressions Aunt Doris allowed me to keep, but a real memory with details and sounds and the feel of her hand over mine. She was real. She was there. She cooked for me, taught me things, called me baby girl in a voice full of love. The beans start to stick, and I stir them frantically, tears blurring my vision. How many memories did I lose? How many moments like that one were buried under 43 years of believing she'd abandoned me? I turn off the stove and lean against the counter, my whole body shaking. The kitchen feels too small suddenly, the walls pressing in. I need air, space, something to do with my hands that isn't cooking food that tastes like lies. Upstairs in my bedroom, I pull out the cedar chest at the foot of my bed. It's full of quilts, some I bought, some handed down, some made by church ladies over the years. I lift out the one on top, a double wedding ring pattern in blues and greens that my neighbor Miss Catherine made for my 40th birthday. The cotton is soft from washing, worn smooth in places where my fingers have traced the pattern during sleepless nights. I spread it on the bed and run my hands over the careful stitches. Miss Catherine spent months on this quilt, piecing together scraps of fabric into something beautiful and useful. Each ring tells a story. A piece of her grandson's outgrown shirt here, a remnant from her daughter's wedding dress there. She took fragments and made them whole. Maybe that's what I need to do now. Take the pieces of my life, the good memories and the painful ones, the love I received and the lies I was told, and find a way to stitch them into something I can live with. I dig deeper into the chest, looking for the quilt I know is at the bottom. My fingers find it finally, a simple log cabin pattern in browns and golds, the colors faded with age. I pull it out carefully, like handling something sacred. This one came from Aunt Doris's house. She'd given it to me when I moved into my first apartment, said it belonged to my mama's mama. My grandmother I never knew. She made this for Ruby when she got married, Aunt Doris had said. Seems right that you should have it now. I hold the quilt up to the lamplight, studying the stitches. They're different from Miss Catherine's precise work. Looser, more hurried in places, like someone was working by candlelight or stealing time between other chores. But the pattern is strong. The colors chosen with care. In the center of each block is a red square, the hearth, the heart of the home. My grandmother made this for my mother. My mother slept under it, maybe dreamed under it. And somehow, through all the lies and betrayals and stolen years, it found its way to me. I wrap the quilt around my shoulders and sit on the edge of the bed. The fabric smells like cedar and thyme, but underneath that is something else, something faint but unmistakable. Jasmine soap, maybe, or the ghost of perfume. My mother's scent, still clinging to threads after all these years. The tears come then, finally. Not the angry tears from Aunt Doris's house, but something deeper, more complicated. Grief for the mother I lost. Rage at the family that stole her from me. Guilt for all the years I believed their version of the story. But underneath it all, something else. Relief. Relief that I'm not crazy for always feeling like something was missing. Relief that the hole in my heart had a real cause, a real loss to mourn. Relief that somewhere in my bones, in my blood, in the deepest part of me, I'd known the truth even when my mind couldn't accept it. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. A text from my daughter Ashley. Hope you had a good Sunday, Mama. Love you. I stare at the words, thinking about the chain of mothers and daughters, the stories passed down, and the ones that get buried. Ashley doesn't know about any of this yet. Doesn't know her grandmother was stolen away instead of walking away. Doesn't know the foundation of our family history just crumbled to dust. But she will. Not tonight. Not until I figure out how to tell the story without destroying her faith in family the way mine got destroyed today. But she'll know. She deserves to know where she comes from, who her people really were. I text back. Love you too, baby. Always. Then I set the phone aside and pull the quilt tighter around me. Outside, it's starting to rain. Fat drops hitting the window with a sound like tiny drums. The weatherman said storms were coming through tonight, but I hadn't been paying attention. Now I'm grateful for the sound, the way it fills the silence and gives me something to listen to besides my own racing thoughts. The rain picks up, becomes a steady rhythm against the glass. I close my eyes and let it wash over me. This sound that's older than lies, older than family secrets, older than the pain sitting heavy in my chest. Tomorrow, I'll have to decide what to do with the truth. Whether to keep digging, find out more about my mother's final years, maybe visit her grave if I can find it. Whether to tell the rest of the family what I know, watch the careful structure of our relationships crumble the way mine did today. Tonight, though, I just sit wrapped in my grandmother's quilt, listening to the rain, holding the memory of my mother's hand over mine as we stirred a pot of beans together in a kitchen that smelled like love instead of lies. Tonight, that's enough. The rain turns harder against my window, drumming like Mama's fingers used to drum on the kitchen table when she was thinking. I remember that now. How she'd tap out rhythms while she planned the week's meals or figured out how to stretch the grocery money. Her fingers were always moving, always creating something out of nothing. I'm still wrapped in grandmother's quilt when my phone rings. The caller ID shows Tisha's name, and for a moment, I consider letting it go to voicemail. I'm not ready to talk about what happened today, not ready to make sense of it for someone else when I can barely make sense of it for myself. But Tisha was there when I found the papers. She deserves to know what came next. Hey, cousin, I say, my voice thick from crying. Sheila, you sound rough. How did it go with Aunt Doris? I tell her everything, about the confrontation, about Aunt Doris's breakdown, about the way she looked so small and broken on her living room floor. Tisha listens without interrupting, making little sounds of shock and sympathy in all the right places. Lord have mercy, she says when I finish. All these years, and she's been carrying that around. No wonder she always seemed so brittle. I keep thinking about Mama, I say, adjusting the quilt around my shoulders. The fabric whispers against itself, a soft sound like secrets being shared. About those 2 weeks between inheriting the money and being committed. What must she have been feeling? Did she know what they were planning? Baby, you can't torture yourself with questions like that. But I can't stop. The questions are like water finding cracks in stone, seeping into every quiet moment. She must have trusted them, must have thought they loved her. Through the phone, I hear Tisha moving around her kitchen, the distinctive sound of cast iron being set on a burner, the whoosh of gas igniting. Even in crisis, life goes on. Dinner still needs cooking. You know what we need to do, Tisha says, and I can hear her stirring something, the spoon scraping against the pan. We need to find out more. Find out where they took her, what happened during those years. I don't know if I can handle more truth right now. Sheila Marie. Her voice gets that tone it used to get when we were kids, and she was trying to talk me into some adventure. You've spent 43 years living with a lie. Don't you think you deserve to know the real story? I close my eyes and breathe in the scent of cedar from the quilt, mixed with the rain-washed air coming through my slightly open window. Somewhere in the distance, I can hear the low rumble of thunder, still miles away, but moving closer. What if the real story is worse than what I imagined? What if it's better? That stops me. In all my spiraling thoughts about my mother's suffering, I hadn't considered that possibility. What if she found peace somewhere? What if there were moments of joy, even in the institution? What if she made friends, found small happinesses, held on to hope that someone would come for her? I found some papers today, Tisha continues. After you left, I went back to Mama's room and looked through everything more carefully. There's a box of letters in her closet, way up on the top shelf. I didn't read them, figured that should be your choice, but they're addressed to your mama. From someone named Dorothy. My heart jumps. Dorothy who? No last name on the return address, just Dorothy and an address in Richmond. The letters are all from the same year, 1987, about 10 years before your mama died. 1987. I would have been 25 then, married to Marcus for 3 years, pregnant with Ashley. I was so wrapped up in my own life, so busy being young and in love and planning for my first baby. If someone had been writing to my mother, trying to connect with her, I never would have known. Tisha, what if Dorothy was a friend? What if Mama wasn't completely alone? Only one way to find out. The thunder is getting closer now. I can feel it in my chest, that deep rumble that seems to come from the earth itself. Lightning flickers outside my window, brief and silver, illuminating the rain-soaked street. I need those letters, I say. I figured you might. I can bring them by tomorrow, or you can come get them tonight if you can't wait. I look around my bedroom, at the quilt spread across my bed, at the gentle glow of my bedside lamp, at the safe, familiar space I've built for myself. Part of me wants to stay here, wrapped in grandmother's quilt, letting the rain wash away the complications of the day. But that's not who I am. I'm Ruby's daughter, and Ruby fought for what was hers until they silenced her voice. I'm my grandmother's granddaughter, and she stitched together scraps to make something beautiful and strong. I'm coming to get them, I say, already standing up, already planning what I need to do. But first, I need to make a stop. Where are you going? To see Aunt Vera. Tisha sucks in a breath. Sheila, you sure about that? Today's been hard enough already. Aunt Vera is Aunt Doris's sister, 2 years younger and twice as stubborn. If Doris was the planner, Vera was the enforcer. She's the one who never liked questions, who shut down conversations about Mama with a sharp look and a sharper word. She's also the one who's been managing the family money all these years, the money that should have been my mother's. If I'm going to know the truth, I say, I need to hear it from all of them. The rain is coming down in sheets now, and I have to raise my voice to be heard over it. I move to the window and look out at the storm, watching the way the streetlights turn each raindrop into a tiny prism. The world looks different in weather like this, sharper somehow, more real. Aunt Vera's not going to break down and confess like Doris did, Tisha warns. She's harder than that. Maybe, but she's also getting old, and old people sometimes want to clear their conscience before they meet their maker. And if she doesn't? I touch the glass with my fingertips, feeling the vibration from the rain hitting the other side. Then I'll know that too. Either way, I can't move forward without trying. We hang up, and I stand there for a moment, gathering my courage. The quilt has slipped down around my waist, and I pull it back up around my shoulders like armor. My grandmother's stitches holding me together. In my dresser drawer, I find the small leather journal I've been keeping for the past few years. Nothing dramatic, just notes about work, reminders about appointments, thoughts I want to remember. Tonight, I'm going to start writing down everything. Every conversation, every revelation, every piece of the puzzle. If this story is going to be told, it's going to be told right. I write the date at the top of a fresh page, then pause. How do you begin to document the unraveling of everything you thought you knew about your family? Today I learned that my mother was stolen from me. I write. The words look stark on the page, but they're true. Not lost. Stolen. There's a difference, and that difference matters. The thunder crashes overhead now, close enough to rattle my windows. The storm has arrived, and there's no hiding from it anymore. I close the journal and tuck it into my purse along with my car keys and phone. Time to drive through the rain to face another piece of the truth. Time to look my Aunt Vera in the eye and ask her what she did to my mother. Time to stop being the nice niece who doesn't ask difficult questions. I'm Ruby's daughter. It's time I started acting like it. The quilt gets folded carefully and placed back in the cedar chest. I'll need it again when I get home. Need its comfort and its connection to the women who came before me. But right now, I need to be strong in a different way. I need to be the daughter who fights for her mother's memory, even if it means tearing down everything I used to believe about family loyalty and keeping the peace. The rain sounds like applause as I grab my umbrella and head for the door. The drive to Aunt Vera's house takes me through the old neighborhood where Mama grew up, where all the sisters lived within walking distance of each other, until life and choices scattered them across the city. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the storm, and I grip the steering wheel tighter each time lightning splits the sky open. My grandmother always said storms brought truth to the surface. Maybe that's why I'm driving through one tonight, instead of waiting for morning. Aunt Vera lives in the same house she's had for 30 years, a neat brick ranch with white shutters that she repaints every 3 years like clockwork. Her porch light is on despite the storm, casting a yellow glow that makes the rain look like golden needles falling from heaven. I sit in my car for a moment, engine running, watching the water cascade off her gutters. The smell of ozone fills the air through my car vents, sharp and electric, like the moment before everything changes. My phone buzzes with a text from Tisha. Call me if you need backup. I can be there in 15 minutes. I type back, I got this, but my hands are shaking as I hit send. The journal in my purse feels heavier than it should, like it already knows the weight of the words I'll write in it later. I've spent 43 years being the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed over family tensions and changed the subject when conversations got uncomfortable. Tonight, I'm about to shatter that piece into 1,000 pieces. Vera's doorbell plays the first few notes of How Great Thou Art. She had it installed after she became head deaconess at Mount Olive Baptist. The sound echoes through her house, and I can hear her footsteps approaching, slow but steady. She's always been deliberate in her movements, never hurried, never flustered. Unlike Doris with her nervous energy, Vera has the kind of calm that comes from always being certain she's right. The door opens, and there she is, 74 years old, silver hair pulled back in a perfect bun, wearing a navy blue housecoat that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her dark eyes take me in from head to toe, noting my wet clothes and wild expression. She doesn't look surprised to see me, which tells me Doris has already called her. Sheila Marie, she says, my full name rolling off her tongue with the weight of childhood reprimands. You're out awful late in weather like this. We need to talk, Aunt Vera. She steps aside to let me in, and I'm hit immediately by the smell of lemon oil and fresh-baked pound cake cooling on her kitchen counter. Everything in Vera's house has always been perfect. The plastic runners protecting her carpet, the family photos arranged just so on the mantelpiece, the artificial flowers that never need watering or replacing. It's the kind of house that makes you afraid to touch anything. I suppose you want some coffee, she says, already moving toward the kitchen. Lord knows you look like you need it. I follow her, my wet shoes squeaking against her polished hardwood floors. The kitchen is exactly as I remember it from childhood visits. White cabinets with glass fronts showing off her good china. A table set with placemats that match the curtains. Everything in its designated place. The only sound besides the storm outside is the steady tick of her rooster-shaped clock above the stove. She pours 2 cups of coffee from a pot that smells like chicory and comfort, the way she's always made it. But when she hands me the cup, her fingers tremble slightly. The first crack in her composure that I've ever seen. Doris called you, I say. It's not a question. She did. Vera settles herself at the head of the table, the spot she's claimed at every family gathering for as long as I can remember. Said you found some old papers at Tisha's place. Said you're all worked up about things that happened before you were even born. The coffee tastes bitter and strong, but I drink it anyway, needing the warmth and the caffeine for what's coming. Those things affected my whole life, Aunt Vera. They affected who I am, who my mother could have been. Don't you think I have a right to know the truth? Truth. She repeats the word like it tastes sour in her mouth. Truth is a luxury, baby girl. Sometimes families have to make hard choices to protect the people they love. Protect who? You didn't protect my mother. You stole from her. Something flickers across Vera's face. Not guilt, but something harder to name. She sets down her coffee cup with deliberate precision, the china making a soft click against the saucer. Your mama was 19 years old when your great-aunt Pauline died, she says, her voice taking on the tone she used when she taught Sunday school, patient but firm. 19, with a head full of dreams and not a lick of sense about money or responsibility. Pauline left her that house and a good bit of savings because Ruby was her favorite. But favoritism don't mean wisdom. I feel my jaw clench. So you decided for her? You and Doris and Uncle James's wife just decided my mother wasn't capable of managing her own inheritance? We decided to protect the family. Vera's voice rises slightly, the first sign of real emotion. You think we wanted to send Ruby away? You think that was easy for any of us? Then why did you do it? The question hangs in the air between us like smoke. Outside, the thunder is moving away, but the rain continues its steady drumming against the windows. Vera gets up and moves to her sink, busying herself with rinsing out the coffee pot, her back to me. Your mother had ideas, she says finally. Big ideas about what she was going to do with that money. She wanted to move up north, maybe to Chicago or Detroit, wanted to open some kind of business, though she couldn't tell you what kind exactly. She was talking about taking the whole family with her, buying a big house where we could all live together like some kind of commune. She turns around, and I can see something in her eyes that might be pain. Ruby was always the dreamer in the family, always thought she could change the world if she just had the right opportunity. But dreams don't pay bills, Sheila. Dreams don't keep food on the table or roofs over heads. So you had her committed to steal her inheritance? The words come out flat and harsh. We had her evaluated because she was talking crazy. Vera's composure finally cracks, and her voice rises to match the storm outside. She was going on about moving the family to Chicago, about buying property up there, about starting fresh. She was 19 years old, Sheila, and she wanted to uproot 3 generations of family because she had some romantic notion about life being better somewhere else. I stand up so fast, my chair scrapes against her perfect floor. Having dreams isn't mental illness, Aunt Vera. Wanting something better for yourself and your family isn't crazy. Isn't it? She moves closer to me, and I can smell her face powder, the same Pond's cold cream she's used since I was little. Your mother was talking about leaving behind everything we'd built here. Leaving the church, leaving the community, leaving the graves of our people. She wanted to take that money and chase after some fantasy about life being different up north. Maybe life would have been different. Maybe it would have been better. And maybe it would have been worse. Maybe she would have lost everything, and then where would the family be? At least this way, the money stayed in the family. At least this way, it was there when people needed it. The phrase hits me like cold water. When people needed it. You mean when you needed it? Vera's face goes very still. I mean, when your cousin Marcus needed surgery that insurance wouldn't cover. I mean, when Doris's husband lost his job and they were about to lose their house. I mean, when your grandmother needed round-the-clock care in her final years. That money helped this family through hard times, Sheila. It did what money is supposed to do. It wasn't your money to use. My voice is quiet now, but there's steel in it. It was my mother's money, her inheritance, her choice to make. Your mother was a child. My mother was an adult, and you stole her choices from her. We stare at each other across her perfect kitchen, 2 generations of family history and pain and secrets between us. The rain has softened to a gentle pattering, and in the distance, I can hear the sound of cars on wet pavement as the world goes on around us. Do you know what happened to her in that place? I ask. Do you know what they did to her? For the first time since I arrived, Vera looks away. We visited her, every week at first, then every month. She seemed peaceful there. The doctor said she was getting the help she needed. The doctors were being paid by you. They told you what you wanted to hear. We thought. Her voice trails off, and she looks older suddenly, more fragile. We thought she would get better. We thought she would come home eventually, and maybe by then she would understand that we were trying to protect her. But she never came home. No, she never came home. The silence stretches between us, filled with the weight of all the years my mother lost, all the choices that were taken from her. I think about the woman in those commitment papers, young, hopeful, full of dreams about a different kind of life. I think about the woman who died in that institution, her dreams long since medicated away. There's something else, I say. Someone named Dorothy was writing to her. Do you know who that was? Vera's face changes, becomes guarded again. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Not now, not after everything else. She turns back to the sink, gripping the edge of the counter. Some woman from up north, Chicago, I think. She claimed to be a friend, said she wanted to help Ruby when she got out. We made sure those letters stopped coming. The rage that rises in me is so pure and hot, it takes my breath away. You intercepted her mail? You kept her from having contact with the outside world? We were protecting her from false hope. This Dorothy person, she was filling Ruby's head with the same kind of foolish ideas that got her in trouble in the first place. Talking about jobs up north, about opportunities, about how things could be different. We couldn't let her get Ruby all worked up again. You couldn't let her have hope. We couldn't let her hurt herself chasing after pipe dreams. I set my coffee cup down with shaking hands. The pound cake on the counter smells like vanilla and butter, like every family gathering I've ever attended in this house. But now, it makes me sick, all of it. The perfect house, the careful arrangements, the way everything has been preserved exactly as it was while my mother's life was thrown away like garbage. I want the letters, I say. What letters? Don't play games with me, Aunt Vera. If you intercepted Dorothy's letters, you kept them. You're too methodical to throw away evidence. I want them. She's quiet for so long, I think she's going to refuse. Then she moves to a cabinet above the refrigerator, the one that used to hold Christmas cookies when I was little. She pulls out a small wooden box, cherry wood with a brass latch, and sets it on the counter. There aren't many, she says. Maybe a dozen or so. They stopped coming after Ruby stopped responding. Inside the box are letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, along with what looks like a photograph and some other papers. My hands shake as I reach for them, these pieces of my mother's stolen life. Why did you keep them? Vera's voice is very quiet. I kept thinking maybe someday I'd give them to you. When you were older, when you could understand. Understand what? That you destroyed my mother's life because you were afraid of change? Understand that we loved her, that everything we did because we loved her. I clutch the box to my chest and look at this woman who helped raise me, who taught me how to fry chicken and braid hair and balance a checkbook. This woman who sang in the church choir and brought casseroles to sick neighbors and made sure I had new school clothes every September. This woman who stole my mother's freedom and called it love. Love doesn't take away choices, I say. Love doesn't silence people or lock them away or decide what's best for them without asking. Sometimes it does, she says, and there are tears in her eyes now. Sometimes love means making the hard decisions so the people you care about don't have to. Sometimes love means being the bad guy so your family can be safe. I head for the door, still clutching the box. The storm has passed, leaving the air clean and electric. My car keys feel cold and solid in my hand. Sheila. Vera's voice stops me at the door. I know you're angry. I know you think we were wrong. But we were young too, trying to hold a family together in hard times. We made the best decisions we could with what we knew then. I turn back to look at her one more time. She looks small, standing in her perfect kitchen, surrounded by all her careful arrangements and controlled beauty. The best decisions for who? I ask. Because they sure weren't the best decisions for my mother. The night air hits my face as I step outside, cool and rain-washed and full of possibilities. In my car, I sit for a moment with the box in my lap, feeling the weight of these rescued pieces of my mother's story. Tomorrow, I'll read the letters. Tomorrow, I'll call Dorothy if she's still alive. Tomorrow, I'll start putting together the life my mother might have lived if her family hadn't decided her dreams were too dangerous to pursue. Tonight, I drive home through empty streets, carrying my mother's stolen words back to the light. The letters feel warm in my hands, like they've been waiting 43 years for someone to hold them with love instead of fear. I spread them across my kitchen table under the soft glow of Mama's old lamp, the one with the fringed shade that Tisha rescued from the house before they cleaned it out. The cherry wood box sits empty beside them, finally surrendered of its secrets. Dorothy's handwriting is careful, educated. The return address says Chicago, Illinois, and the dates span from 1979 to 1981. 2 years of reaching across the miles to a woman who never knew her letters were being read by the wrong eyes. Dear Ruby, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been thinking about our conversation at the church conference in Atlanta, how we talked about the possibilities opening up for colored women in the North. The bank where I work is hiring, and I could put in a good word. I press my palm flat against the paper, trying to absorb the hope that radiates from every word. Dorothy wasn't just offering friendship. She was offering escape, opportunity, a whole different life. The coffee in my cup has gone cold, but I can't stop reading long enough to reheat it. Dear Ruby, I was sorry to hear about your husband's passing. I know how hard it must be, raising Sheila on your own. But honey, you're still young, still smart as a whip. There's a whole world out here waiting for women like us. I've enclosed some newspaper clippings about job opportunities. My throat closes up as I picture Mama reading these words in secret, maybe late at night when she thought everyone was asleep. Did she dream about Chicago? Did she imagine me growing up in a place where being smart and ambitious wasn't seen as dangerous? The photograph tucked between the letters shows a beautiful brown-skinned woman in a navy blue dress, standing in front of what looks like a bank building. On the back, in that same careful handwriting, for Ruby. Your friend always, Dorothy Washington, 1980. Dorothy looks confident, successful. Everything my mother was told she couldn't be. Ruby, I'm worried. It's been 3 months since your last letter. I hope everything is all right. I called the number you gave me, but the woman who answered said you weren't available and wouldn't say when you might be. The paper trembles in my hands. Aunt Vera, intercepting phone calls too, making sure Dorothy's voice never reached my mother's ears. Dear Ruby, the lady at your house told me you were sick and couldn't receive visitors or letters. I don't understand what's happening, but I want you to know that if you need anything at all, you can reach me. I've enclosed my work number and my supervisor's name. She's a good white woman who believes in helping our people. The last letter is dated December 1981, 2 months after Mama died. Ruby, I don't know if you're getting these letters, but I can't stop trying. I heard from someone at the conference that you were in a hospital. I'm going to keep writing until someone tells me the truth about what happened to you. You were too strong, too bright to just disappear. I fold the letter carefully, my hands shaking so hard I can barely manage it. Dorothy never stopped believing in my mother, even when everyone else had given up on her. Even when they'd locked her away and thrown away the key. The smell of rain still clings to my clothes from earlier, mixed now with the musty scent of old paper and faded ink. I can hear my neighbor's television through the thin walls, some late-night talk show with canned laughter that sounds hollow and far away. I reach for my phone before I can talk myself out of it. Directory assistance for Chicago takes forever, the automated voice cycling through options while my heart pounds against my ribs like it's trying to break free. What city and state? Chicago, Illinois. What listing? Dorothy Washington. My voice cracks on the name. There's a pause, then. I have several Dorothy Washingtons. Do you have an address or approximate age? I close my eyes, trying to calculate. If Dorothy was around Mama's age in 1980, she'd be in her 70s now. She might be retired, probably in her 70s. She used to work at a bank. I have a D. Washington on South Shore Drive. Would you like me to connect you? The phone rings 3 times before a voice answers. Warm, cultured, with just a hint of the South still clinging to the edges. Hello? Dorothy Washington? Yes, this is Dorothy. Who's calling, please? I take a breath that feels like swallowing glass. My name is Sheila. Sheila Patterson? I think you knew my mother. Ruby Patterson. The silence stretches so long, I wonder if the line went dead. Then, Ruby? Oh my lord, Ruby's daughter? Yes, ma'am. Child, I have been wondering about your mother for 40 years. 40 years. Is Ruby all right? The words stick in my throat like broken glass. No, ma'am. She died in 1981. She was in a state hospital, and she died there. Dorothy's sharp intake of breath carries across the miles. A hospital? What kind of hospital? A mental institution. My family had her committed in 1978, 2 weeks after she inherited some property. They said she was having a breakdown, but I found out tonight that it was all lies. They wanted her inheritance. Oh, Ruby. Dorothy's voice breaks. Oh, honey, no. She was fine when I talked to her that last time. Sad about her husband dying, worried about money, but she wasn't crazy. She was the sanest woman I knew. I'm crying now, tears dropping onto the letters spread across my table. She tried to write to you. I have the letters they intercepted. They never let her send them. Those bastards! The word sounds strange in Dorothy's cultured voice, but it carries the weight of 4 decades of worry and loss. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I don't usually use language like that, but what they did to your mother, it's unforgivable. I know. I just found out tonight. My aunt finally told me the truth. What can I do? How can I help? It's too late for Ruby, but maybe I can do something for you. I lean back in my chair, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that carried me through the confrontations with my aunts is draining away, leaving me hollow and shaky. I don't know. I wanted you to know what happened to her. I wanted someone who cared about her to know the truth. She talked about you all the time in her letters. How smart you were. How proud she was of you. She said you were going to be somebody special. Somebody who could make a difference in the world. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. She never got to see if she was right. Baby, from the sound of your voice, from the courage it took to track me down and tell me this story, I'd say she was absolutely right. Ruby raised a fighter. I looked down at the letters, at Dorothy's careful handwriting offering hope and opportunity that never reached the right hands. What was she like when you knew her? Dorothy's laugh is warm, rich with memory. Your mama was something else. Sharp as a tack, funny as hell, pardon my French, and determined to make something better for herself and for you. She had ideas, plans. She wanted to study business, maybe open her own shop someday. She wasn't content to just accept things the way they were. That's what got her in trouble. That's what should have set her free. We talk for another hour. Dorothy filling in pieces of my mother's story that I never knew existed. How they met at a church conference in Atlanta. How Ruby lit up when she talked about possibilities, about dreams that stretched beyond the narrow boundaries her family had drawn around her life. How she worried that staying in the same small town would limit what I could become. She loved you so much, Dorothy says. Everything she wanted to do, every plan she made, it was all about giving you better chances than she'd had. When we finally hang up, the house feels different around me. Not empty exactly, but expectant, like it's waiting for me to decide what comes next. I gather the letters carefully, smoothing each one before placing it back in the cherry wood box. These aren't just old papers anymore. They're proof that my mother had allies, that someone believed in her dreams, even when her own family called them delusions. The clock on the microwave reads 2:47 a.m., but I'm not tired. I feel energized, purposeful in a way I haven't felt in years. There's something I need to do, something that's been building in my chest since I first opened that hidden envelope behind Mama's jewelry box. I pull out my laptop and start typing, my fingers flying across the keys. To whom it may concern. My name is Sheila Patterson, and I am writing to report a case of false imprisonment and theft that occurred in 1978. My mother, Ruby Patterson, was illegally committed to Millfield State Hospital by family members who wanted to steal her inheritance. The words pour out of me like water through a broken dam. Everything I learned tonight, every detail of the conspiracy that stole my mother's life. I include dates, names, the forged documents I found. I cite laws about patient rights and inheritance fraud. I demand an investigation. By the time I finish, the sky outside my kitchen window is starting to lighten, painting the walls with soft gray light. The letter is 12 pages long, single-spaced, and it tells the whole truth with the kind of clarity that comes from finally understanding a story that's been broken your whole life. I print 3 copies, one for the state attorney general, one for the hospital administration, and one for the local newspaper. Maybe it's too late for justice in any legal sense, but it's not too late for the truth to see daylight. As I fold the letters and stuff them into envelopes, I can smell coffee brewing in someone else's kitchen, can hear the first birds starting to sing in the oak tree outside my window. The world is waking up, and for the first time in 43 years, I feel like I'm waking up too. My mother's story doesn't end in that hospital room. It ends here, in my kitchen, with her daughter finally strong enough to tell the truth and demand that it matter. I seal the last envelope and set it with the others on the counter. Tomorrow, today, really, I'll drive to the post office and send them all certified mail. I'll call Dorothy back and tell her what I'm doing. I'll start the process of getting my mother's medical records, of building a case that might not bring legal consequences, but will at least put the truth on record. The cherry wood box sits open beside my laptop, Dorothy's letters visible inside like promises that were kept too late but weren't forgotten. I touch the photograph of Dorothy one more time, this woman who refused to give up on my mother even when everyone else had written her off as crazy. Thank you. I whisper to the empty kitchen, to the ghost of possibilities that might have been, to the mother who deserved so much better than what her family gave her. The sun is rising now, painting everything golden, and I feel something I haven't felt since I was a child. Hope. Not for changing what happened, but for honoring it properly, for making sure my mother's story gets told with all the love and respect it deserved from the beginning. I close the laptop and head for the shower. I have work to do. The post office opens at 8, but I'm there at 7:30, sitting in my car with the 3 envelopes in my lap, watching the morning light catch the brass lettering on the building's facade. My hands are trembling, not from nerves, but from something deeper, like my body finally understands the weight of what I'm carrying. The smell of fresh asphalt mingles with the magnolia blooms from the tree beside my car, and I can taste the bitter coffee I drank too fast before leaving the house. Everything feels heightened, like the world has been turned up a notch, and I'm finally awake enough to notice. When the postal worker unlocks the doors, I'm the first one inside. The woman behind the counter, Ms. Geneva, I recognize her from church, looks at me with concern. "You all right, baby? You look like you seen a ghost." I almost laugh at how close to the truth that is. "I'm good, Ms. Geneva. Just need to send these certified mail." She takes the envelopes, reads the addresses, and her eyebrows rise slightly. "State Attorney General, Hospital Administration." She looks at me over her reading glasses. "This about something serious?" "Yes, ma'am. Something that should have been serious 43 years ago?" She nods slowly, stamps each envelope with deliberate care, and hands me the receipts. "Sometimes the truth takes its own sweet time showing up," she says, and I wonder if she knows more than she's letting on. In a town this small, everyone knows everyone's business, even the business people try to bury. The certified mail receipts feel like contracts in my purse as I drive home, proof that I've set something in motion that can't be taken back. My phone rings just as I pull into my driveway. Tisha's name on the screen. "Girl, where you been? I've been calling since 6 this morning." "At the post office," I say, cutting the engine. "Mailing some letters?" "What kind of letters?" I tell her everything, about calling Dorothy, about the job offers and dreams Mama never got to pursue, about staying up all night writing to the Attorney General. Tisha is quiet for so long, I think the call dropped. "Tisha, you still there?" "I'm here." Her voice sounds different, strained. "Sheila, we need to talk. In person. There's something else." The way she says it makes my stomach clench. "What do you mean, something else?" "Not over the phone. Can you come over? Now?" 20 minutes later, I'm sitting at Tisha's kitchen table, watching her pace back and forth in front of her stove. She's still in her house robe, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, and she keeps wringing her hands like she's trying to squeeze courage out of her fingers. "Tisha, you're scaring me. What is it?" She stops pacing and looks at me directly for the first time since I arrived. "After you left yesterday, after you found those papers, I couldn't stop thinking. So I called my mama." My heart starts beating faster. Aunt Patricia is Tisha's mother, Mama's youngest sister, the only one who wasn't involved in the conspiracy, or so we thought. "And?" "Mama's been carrying something for 40 years, Sheila. Something she was too ashamed to tell, too scared to admit." Tisha sits down across from me, reaches across the table to take my hands. "She knew." The words hit me like cold water. "She knew what?" "She knew what they were planning. Mama knew they were going to have Aunt Ruby committed, and she didn't stop it." The kitchen tilts around me. I can hear the refrigerator humming, can smell the lingering scent of bacon grease from breakfast, can feel Tisha's warm palms against my knuckles, but everything feels distant, muffled, like I'm underwater. She was 19, Sheila. Just 19, and scared of Aunt Doris and Uncle James. When they told her the plan, when they said Aunt Ruby was getting too big for her britches with all that inheritance money and needed to be handled, Mama said she tried to argue, but they told her if she interfered, they'd make sure she never saw a penny of family money for her own children. I pull my hands away from Tisha's. So she chose money over my mother. She chose survival. For herself, for me, for my brother. She was a 19-year-old girl with 2 babies and no husband, Sheila. They had all the power. But she could have warned Mama. She could have called, could have... She tried. Tisha's voice breaks. The night before they came for Aunt Ruby, Mama called her. But Aunt Ruby thought it was just Patricia being dramatic, worrying over nothing. She said she'd be fine. That family doesn't turn on family like that. The irony cuts through me like a blade. Mama trusted them. Even when Patricia tried to warn her, Mama believed in family loyalty, right up until the moment they betrayed her. "There's more," Tisha says quietly. "Mama wants to see you. She wants to tell you herself, wants to apologize for keeping quiet all these years. She's been eating herself alive with guilt, especially since Aunt Doris died last year." I stand up so fast, the chair scrapes against the linoleum. "Doris is dead?" "Last October. Heart attack. Mama said she took the secret to her grave, never admitted what they did, never showed one bit of remorse." The room spins around me. All this time, I've been planning what I'd say to Aunt Doris, how I'd confront her, make her admit what she did to my mother. And she's been dead for months. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had enough to carry," Tisha says. "And because Mama made me promise not to say anything until she was ready to face you herself." I walk to Tisha's kitchen window, press my palms against the cool glass. Try to steady my breathing. Outside, her neighbor's children are playing in the backyard, their laughter carrying on the morning breeze. Normal life continuing while my world reshapes itself again. She wants to see me now? She's waiting for you. Has been since dawn, sitting in her front room in her good dress, scared you'll refuse to come. I think about Aunt Patricia, soft-spoken Patricia, who always seemed nervous at family gatherings, who brought the best pound cake to church suppers, but never said much. Patricia, who was just a teenager when her older siblings destroyed my mother's life. Will you come with me? If you want me to. I turn away from the window. I need to call Dorothy first. Tell her what I'm doing, what I found out. Tisha nods. Use my phone. I'll make some coffee for the road. Dorothy's voice is gentle when I tell her about Patricia's confession, about the failed warning, about Doris being dead. Oh, honey, she says. Your poor mama. She trusted them right to the end. I don't know if I can forgive Patricia. I know she was young, but she could have done more. Maybe. Or maybe she did what she could with the choices she had. 19 years old, 2 babies, no money, and a family full of people willing to destroy their own sister for property. That girl was probably terrified. But 40 years of silence, Dorothy. 40 years of letting me think my mother was actually mentally ill. Shame is a powerful thing, Sheila. It makes people hide in ways that hurt everyone, including themselves. But she's ready to face it now. That counts for something. When I hang up, Tisha is waiting by the door with 2 travel mugs of coffee and her purse. You ready? I think about the letters I mailed this morning, about the investigation that's already in motion, about the truth that's finally breaking free after 4 decades underground. I think about my mother, trusting her family right up until they betrayed her, and about a 19-year-old girl too scared to do more than make one phone call that wasn't believed. Yeah, I say, taking the coffee. I'm ready. The drive to Aunt Patricia's house takes us through the older part of town, past the elementary school where Mama used to volunteer in my classroom, past the corner store where she'd buy me penny candy on Fridays. Everything looks different now that I know the truth. Not worse exactly, but layered with complexity I couldn't see before. Patricia lives in a small brick house with a neat front garden and wind chimes on the porch. As we pull into her driveway, I can see her silhouette in the front window, waiting just like Tisha said she would be. My hands are steady as I walk up the front steps, but my heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. This is it. The last piece of the puzzle. The final conversation that will complete the picture of what was done to my mother and why. Patricia opens the door before I can knock, and I'm struck by how much she's aged. She's only 67, but she looks older, worn down by decades of carrying secrets. Her eyes are red-rimmed, and her hands shake as she gestures us inside. Sheila, baby, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been waiting so long to tell you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And just like that, looking at this broken woman in her good dress, sitting in her clean front room with tissues already in her lap, I understand something Dorothy tried to tell me. Sometimes the people who hurt us are hurting too, and sometimes the truth is more complicated than the anger we carry. I sit down across from her, Tisha beside me for support, and prepare to hear the last chapter of my mother's story. Patricia's living room smells like lemon oil and old roses, the kind of careful cleanliness that comes from having too much time to think. She sits across from me in a burgundy armchair that's seen better days, her fingers working a tissue into shreds, while Tisha settles beside me on the matching sofa. The morning light filters through sheer curtains, casting everything in a soft, forgiving glow that feels wrong for what we're about to discuss. I don't know where to start. Patricia says, her voice trembling like autumn leaves. I've practiced this conversation in my head for 40 years, and now that you're here, all my words are gone. I lean forward, my elbows on my knees. Start with the phone call. Tisha said you tried to warn my mother. Patricia closes her eyes, and when she opens them, they're swimming with tears. Ruby was so excited about that inheritance, called me the day after the will was read, talking about how she was going to fix up the house, maybe take you on a real vacation somewhere. Disney World, she kept saying. You were 9 and obsessed with Mickey Mouse. The detail hits me like a physical blow. I remember that obsession, remember the Mickey Mouse ears I wore everywhere until the elastic broke. She was planning a trip. More than that, she was planning a whole new life. The inheritance wasn't just money, Sheila. There was property, too. 3 houses your great-aunt owned, all rental properties bringing in good money every month. Ruby was talking about quitting that night shift at the hospital, maybe going back to school to become a nurse practitioner like she always wanted. Tisha reaches over and squeezes my hand. Her palm is warm and slightly damp, grounding me in this moment where my mother's stolen dreams are being laid out like photographs I've never seen before. Patricia continues, her voice getting stronger as she finds her rhythm. But Doris and Uncle James, they'd been counting on that money. James had gambling debts, and Doris wanted to buy that big house on Elm Street. You know, the one with the wraparound porch she always admired. When Great-Aunt Beatrice left everything to Ruby, instead of splitting it between all the siblings like everyone expected, they decided to take it, I finish. Not right away. First, they tried talking to her, suggesting she share the inheritance for the good of the family. But Ruby, she was smart about money, always had been. She told them she'd help if anyone had real emergencies, but she wasn't giving away her daughter's future just because they felt entitled to something that was never theirs. The tissue in Patricia's hands is nothing but damp shreds now. She reaches for another from the box beside her chair, and I notice how her hands shake, not just from nerves, but with the tremor of someone who's carried too much weight for too long. That's when they started talking about how Ruby was acting strange, how the stress of sudden wealth was affecting her mind. James's wife, Carolyn, she worked at the county mental health office. She knew exactly what papers to file, what doctors to talk to, how to make it all look legitimate. I stand up abruptly, needing to move, needing to process this through my body as much as my mind. Patricia's living room is small, but I pace to the window, look out at her garden where tomato plants are just starting to set fruit. The normalcy of it, the careful rows, the wire cages, the promise of harvest, makes the horror of what she's telling me even sharper. How long did they plan it? I ask, not turning around. 2 weeks. They spent 2 weeks building a case against their own sister, collecting evidence of her supposed mental instability. Doris would visit Ruby and then write down everything she said, twisting it to sound delusional. Ruby thinks she's going to take her daughter to Disney World became Ruby is having grandiose fantasies about money she doesn't understand. I press my forehead against the cool glass of the window. Outside, a cardinal lands on Patricia's bird feeder, its red feathers brilliant against the green of her hedge. Life continuing, beautiful and oblivious, while I learn the mechanics of my mother's betrayal. And you knew, I say. It's not a question. I suspected. I was 19, Sheila, barely managing my own life with 2 babies and a husband who could barely keep a job. But I saw how they whispered when Ruby wasn't around, how they'd stop talking when I walked into a room. And I knew my sister. Ruby wasn't crazy. She was happy. For the first time since your daddy died, she was genuinely happy. Patricia's voice breaks on the last word, and when I turn around, I see tears streaming down her cheeks. I should have done more. Should have warned her properly. Should have fought harder. Should have told someone in authority what they were planning. Tisha shifts on the sofa, and I hear the leather creak under her weight. What did you do? I called Ruby the night before they came for her. Told her I was worried about some of the family's talk. That maybe she should be careful. Maybe talk to a lawyer about protecting her interests. But I was so scared, so vague. I didn't tell her what I really suspected, because I was terrified of what would happen to me if I was wrong, or worse, if I was right, and they found out I'd warned her. The cardinal flies away, leaving the feeder swinging gently in the morning breeze. I walk back to the sofa, but I don't sit down. I need to stay on my feet, need to feel the solid floor beneath me, while my understanding of everything shifts and settles into new patterns. What did she say when you called? She thanked me for caring, said she'd be careful. Then she laughed, I'll never forget that laugh, and said, Patricia, honey, these are my own brothers and sisters. They might be jealous, but they wouldn't actually hurt me. She trusted them completely, right up to the end. The silence stretches between us, filled with the weight of 40 years' worth of what-ifs and should-have-beens. I can hear the tick of Patricia's mantel clock, the distant hum of her refrigerator, the sound of children playing somewhere in the neighborhood. Normal sounds of a normal Saturday morning, while we sit in the wreckage of secrets that have finally been unearthed. Tell me about the day they took her, I say quietly. Patricia's whole body seems to shrink into itself. I wasn't there, couldn't bear to watch. But Doris told me later, like she was proud of how smoothly it went. They came in the morning, right after you'd left for school. Ruby was still in her robe, making coffee, probably planning her day. They had official papers, men in suits, everything looking proper and legal. Did she fight them? Doris said she was confused at first, kept asking what was happening, why they were there. But when they explained about the mental health evaluation, Ruby went along peacefully. She trusted the system, trusted that if there were papers and officials, it must be legitimate. She kept asking if someone could call you at school, let you know she'd be back soon. I sink down onto the sofa beside Tisha, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. The image of my mother, trusting and cooperative even as her own family destroyed her life, is almost unbearable. I think of all the times I visited her at the hospital, how she'd always ask about school, about my friends, about whether I was eating enough. Even locked away, even medicated and confused, she was still trying to take care of me. How long before she realized what had really happened? I ask. I don't know. Maybe never, completely. The medications they gave her, the treatments. Doris used to visit her sometimes, in the beginning. Said Ruby would ask about the inheritance, about the houses, but in this vague way, like she couldn't quite hold on to the memory of what she'd lost. Tisha's hand finds mine again, her fingers intertwining with mine in a grip that feels like an anchor. Did she ever ask about you, Patricia? Did she ever wonder why you didn't visit more? Patricia nods, fresh tears spilling over. Every time I went to see her. Where's Patricia? She'd ask. Why doesn't Patricia come to see me anymore? I couldn't face her, knowing what I knew, knowing I'd failed her when she needed me most. But you did visit sometimes? A few times a year, when the guilt got too heavy to carry. I'd bring her magazines, candy, pictures of you from school events. She'd always light up when I showed her those pictures. Always wanted to hear everything about what you were doing, how you were growing up. I think about those school events, how I'd scan the crowd for family faces and only see my caseworker or the neighbors who'd volunteered to drive me. I never knew my mother was getting reports. that someone was telling her about my science fair projects and Christmas pageants. The last time I saw her, Patricia continues, was about 2 years before she died. She seemed more lucid that day, more like the Ruby I remembered. She grabbed my hand and said, "Patricia, I need you to promise me something. When I'm gone, you tell Sheila the truth about what happened. Don't let her spend her whole life thinking I abandoned her because I was crazy." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I have to press my hand to my chest to ease the sudden tightness there. She knew. Some part of her knew, yes. Maybe not all the details. Maybe not who exactly was responsible. But she knew she'd been betrayed by people she trusted. And she knew you deserved better than the lies they'd built around her disappearance. I stand up again, walk to Patricia's fireplace, where family photos are arranged on the mantel. Most of them show her children and grandchildren, but tucked in the back is an older photo. Ruby and me at a church picnic, both of us laughing at something outside the frame. I was maybe 7, gap-toothed and grinning, completely secure in my mother's love. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? After she died, why wait all these years?" Patricia's voice is barely a whisper. "Because I was a coward. Because I was ashamed. Because every year that passed made it harder to admit what I'd let happen. And because—" She pauses, struggling with something. "Because I was afraid you'd hate me. And I was afraid that once I told you the truth, I'd have to face how much I hated myself." I turn around to face her, this broken woman who's been carrying my mother's final request for over a decade. "Do you hate yourself?" "Every day. Every single day for 40 years. The honesty in her voice, the raw pain of it, cracks something open in my chest. I walk back to her chair, kneel down beside it so we're at eye level. Up close, I can see how much this has cost her. The lines around her eyes, the way her mouth turns down even when she's not frowning, the exhaustion that seems to emanate from her very bones. "Patricia," I say gently, "hating yourself doesn't bring her back. It doesn't undo what happened. It just means 2 lives got destroyed instead of 1. She looks at me with something like wonder, as if she can't believe I'm not screaming at her, not walking out in disgust. "How can you be so kind to me?" "Because my mother asked you to tell me the truth, and you finally did. Because you were 19 and scared and in an impossible situation. Because carrying this secret has been its own kind of prison." I reach out and take her shaking hands in mine. "And because I think Mama would want me to forgive you. She always said holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." Patricia breaks down completely then, sobbing with the kind of grief that's been held back too long. Tisha comes over and puts her arms around both of us, and for a moment, we're just 3 women crying together in a living room that smells like lemon oil and old roses, holding each other through the weight of what's been lost and what's been found. When the tears subside, I sit back on my heels. "I need you to do something for me." Patricia nods, wiping her eyes with a fresh tissue. "Anything. I've already sent letters to the State Attorney General and the hospital administration. There's going to be an investigation into what happened to my mother. I need you to tell them everything you just told me. All of it. Even the parts that make you look bad." Her face goes pale, but she doesn't hesitate. "Yes, I should have done it years ago." "It won't bring her back," I continue, "and it probably won't result in any real consequences for the people who are still alive. But it will put the truth on record. It will make sure that what happened to Ruby Jenkins gets acknowledged officially, not just whispered about in living rooms." "I understand." I stand up, and Tisha rises beside me. "We've been here for over 2 hours, and the morning light has shifted to the harsher brightness of midday. Patricia walks us to the door, moving slowly like someone much older than her 67 years. "Sheila," she says as I step onto the porch. "What your mother said about Disney World? She really was going to take you. She'd already started saving brochures, planning the trip for your spring break." I nod, not trusting my voice to respond. The cardinal has returned to the bird feeder, and I watch it for a moment, thinking about dreams deferred and promises broken, and the way truth can be both a weapon and a balm. On the drive home, Tisha and I don't talk much. The radio plays softly, gospel music, familiar hymns that remind me of Sunday mornings with my mother, before everything fell apart. I think about the letters I mailed this morning, about the investigation that's already in motion, about Patricia's promise to testify to whatever authorities need to hear from her. "You did good in there," Tisha says as we pull into my driveway. "Did I? I feel like I should be angrier, like I should have made her suffer more for what she let happen." Tisha turns off the engine and looks at me. "Anger's got its place, but it doesn't have to be the only thing. You saw how much that woman has been suffering. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is help someone stop punishing themselves." Inside my house, everything looks the same, but feels different. The late afternoon light slants through my kitchen window, illuminating dust motes that dance in the golden air. I make myself a glass of iced tea, not sweet tea, just plain tea with lemon, and sit at my kitchen table with Dorothy's letters spread out in front of me. I read them again, all of them, looking for clues about my mother's state of mind in those final weeks before her world collapsed. In the last letter, dated just 3 days before Ruby was institutionalized, Dorothy wrote, "I know this inheritance has got everybody stirred up, but don't let them pressure you into anything you don't want to do. That money is yours and Sheila's future, and you have every right to protect it. Trust your instincts, Ruby. You've always been the smartest one in that family. Trust your instincts." But how do you trust your instincts when the people trying to hurt you are the ones who raised you, who taught you that family always comes first, who convinced you that love and loyalty were the same thing? The phone rings, startling me out of my thoughts. It's Dorothy, calling from Chicago. "How did it go with Patricia?" she asks. I tell her everything, Patricia's confession, her guilt, the details about my mother's plans and dreams, the promise to cooperate with the investigation. Dorothy listens without interrupting, making small sounds of understanding and sympathy. "That poor child," she says when I finish, "carrying that burden all these years. She was part of it, Dorothy. She could have done more to stop it." Maybe, or maybe she did what she could with the courage she had. Not everyone can be a hero, honey. Some people can only manage to be human. After we hang up, I sit in my kitchen as the day fades into evening, thinking about heroes and humans, about forgiveness and justice, about the difference between understanding why something happened and excusing it. The investigation will proceed, the truth will be officially acknowledged, and some small measure of justice will be served. But the real work, the work of healing, of integrating this new understanding of my mother's story into my own life, that work will take time. I think about Ruby Jenkins, my mother, who trusted her family right up until they betrayed her, who went peacefully with the officials because she believed in systems and rules and the goodness of people she loved, who spent 17 years in a mental institution, medicated and confused, but still asking about her daughter, still trying to make sure I was okay. The last of the day's light is fading when I finally get up from the table. I fold Dorothy's letters carefully and put them back in their box, next to the legal documents that started all of this. Tomorrow, I'll call the lawyer Dorothy recommended, start the process of seeing if any of my mother's inheritance can be recovered. It's probably too late for legal remedies, but maybe not for moral ones. As I'm getting ready for bed, I catch sight of myself in the bathroom mirror and stop, startled by what I see. I look like my mother, not just the shape of my eyes or the curve of my mouth, but something deeper, a kind of quiet strength that comes from surviving things you shouldn't have had to survive, from finding ways to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible. I think about Patricia, sitting in her living room in her good dress, waiting since dawn for the courage to tell the truth. I think about Tisha, preserving my mother's room like a shrine, keeping the evidence safe until I was ready to find it. I think about Dorothy, writing letters across decades, trying to offer my mother a different life, even when she couldn't accept it. All these women, carrying pieces of my mother's story, waiting for the right moment to hand them back to me. All of them flawed, all of them human, all of them doing what they could with the choices they had. In my bedroom, I pull back the covers and climb into bed, but sleep feels far away. Instead, I lie in the darkness and think about Disney World, about the trip my mother planned but never got to take, about the nursing degree she wanted to pursue, the rental properties she wanted to manage, the future she wanted to build for both of us. Those dreams died with her, but something else has been born from their ashes, a deeper understanding of who she was, what she endured, how much she loved me even when she couldn't show it the way she wanted to. The truth doesn't give me back those lost years, doesn't undo the damage that was done, but it gives me something I've been missing my whole adult life. The certainty that I was wanted, that I was loved, that my mother's absence was not a choice, but a theft. Outside my window, I can hear the sound of wind chimes from my neighbor's porch, the same gentle music that played the night I first found those documents in Tisha's house. But tonight, the sound doesn't feel mournful. Tonight, it sounds like a lullaby, like a mother's voice singing her daughter to sleep across the years and the silence and all the ways that love persists, even when everything else has been taken away. I close my eyes and let the sound carry me toward sleep, toward dreams where my mother and I finally take that trip to Disney World, where we're both 9 years old and laughing, where the only magic that matters is the kind that lives between a mother and daughter who have finally found their way back to each other.